Well, hey, all you repair people and others interested in how brass instrument repair works and the fun that it is. Here I've got a very hard to access dent in a third branch of a marching tuba. And the only way to get this off, or these dents out, would be to remove, let's see, one, two braces here, plus loosen it at the ferrule, two braces over here, and then unsolder it at the ferrule, and then you would have free access to do that branch. That's a lot of work and a lot of extra soldering that would take a lot of extra time. So I've devised a little plan that works really well. I've done this before, and I'll explain what I'm doing. First of all, I've got my slide hammer, and it's got a bevel on one end, and it's just got a round flat on the other end. The beveled side seems to work well. What I do is I just go about the width of the puller. So I solder it in place, let that cool. And I've just put some paste flux on here so that I can keep going a little bit at a time. Then I let that cool, and then I lift the dent out like that. And then when I'm done, that'll be a massive improvement. And then I can touch this area up with Red Rouge buffing compound and kerosene, or valve oil, I guess could work. But that really does a good job at removing the solder tinning on the silver surface. So I'm going to go right here, right next to that one where I left off. And I just hold still, let that cool back down below 360 degrees. Maybe blow on it a little bit. And then we just gently hold it, and then I'm sliding up against this here. Bang. All right. This really makes these inaccessible dents accessible. Otherwise, if I'd be pulling that branch off with all that soldering and stuff in place there, that'd be easily $150 to probably $200 to take that branch off, de-dent it, and reinstall it. Whereas this is a far quicker and less expensive way to do it. Still not free because there is value here, but I've also got dents. I've got dents in this bowl that I'm going to use magnets on, wrinkles in the bell that I'm going to use rollers on, some dents here I'll use magnets on, magnets, some of that will be rare earth magnet, and the big balls, the AC/DC balls. Anyway, that's how that will come out. And I'm just gonna keep. All right, do another one. Just let that cool. I don't know how that dent got in there, that real sharp crease, but all of these are from a drum core, and they're all like this, except like maybe one. We keep going. Any technicians out there, how do you do this? Or do you do this? Or do you just say, it's beyond my pay grade? Or do you take the whole branch off and just quote them a massive fee? I've been doing this 37, coming up on 38 years. I'm always open to new techniques and ideas. So, just to give you an idea, and this is something I've fairly recently implemented. So I'm going to heat this up and start wiping it. Now you can see that there's a little wrinklage, little peaks here and there. I will go over that with a dent hammer. and knock those down a little bit. Now you have to understand that there's going to be little divots there because of where the solder puller was located. Understand that this is not refinish, overhaul, restoration. What we're doing is getting the main dents out of it to make this nicely functional again. If you were doing a refinish job on this and re-silver plating it and all that, that kind of approach would not really be good. You might be able to start it that way. Then I could go on in here with dent balls. Now you might say, well, why don't you just use your magnet? I can't. I got this guy in the way. If I put the magnet on there, let's pretend this is the magnet. See where that sits? The center isn't even close to that. Even using a smaller magnet, it doesn't quite get to the center. And because of magnets the way they are, the pull is right in the center. Okay, you can't just use the edge of the magnet and get that and do a decent job. I mean, I've tried to manipulate that. It just doesn't really work very well. And I've been pretty pleased with the results, and I've gotten good feedback. Let's do another one. Just keep going. I might need to add some solder to my end of my puller here. It's starting to get a little bit, while I'm moving around, that might be a weak joint. Oh, let's just, well, that came up. This tubing is fairly soft. We'll just say that, right? It's fairly soft stuff. Let's apply a little more heat, a little more solder to this tip. There it is. Put one up right next to it, right where I left off. So we're back down in this little valley. Heat that up, let it sit. Don't do this after you've had a Monster drink. You can be shaking. I don't drink Monsters. I do drink coffee though. There we go. Look at that. That's all coming up. And there's a variety of ways I can approach this. I can put a dent hammer on it and tap the hammer to kind of bring that down. I can get it in there with a burnisher. Let's see, where did my burnisher go? You get a burnisher, it's got a round side and it's got a flat side. You can get in there and work that back and forth. That will help. It's starting to flatten out right there though, because that's pretty soft tubing. But that is the idea. Okay, so I've been working on this with a magnet and ball on the other dents that were near that crease. A lot of little dingers down here that are only gonna improve so much because the size of the dent. You could roll on that all day and not be very effective. The other problem is down in some of these smaller branch areas, the diameter of the tube relative to the thickness of the metal makes it effectively a stronger area, whereas something like here, the diameter versus the thickness is there's just less strength in that. I think that's intuitive and makes sense. All right, so I'm gonna keep working this area. This won't be 100%, but it'll be much improved. Compared to where it was, this is a vast improvement. So we'll keep going on that. All right, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit, and I'm going to do something a little more dramatic and take out that big bad boy there with magnetic dent tools, the MDRS system, magnetic dent removal system. Now, I'm going to have to put a bigger ball in there because the one I've got that I was working on, this smaller branch, is not going to be appropriate. So let me take this ball out. There it is under my... It's just a small one. Let's go with let's see, something like that. Big ball bearing, big ball bearing, big ball bearing. Let's see what that does. All right, first I got to get it in the horn. Okay, so this big bad dent, I put my drum head on there. Might be a little grease, slide grease on it, or some slide grease on the ball too. But I'm just going to start on the very edge of this dent and work into it. Here, it's starting to come out. I'll tell you what, in the summertime, I do a lot of this. My right elbow starts to scream. You're really pulling. I mean, this is like working on a dumbbell. Your shoulder. This is not for the faint of heart. All right, so we continue to work that. Let me take this drum head off. I've got some lube on it now. This is the idea. We're starting to iron that. You got to be careful ramming over this ferrule. You get little humps here, and it's just what you have to live with. Again, this wouldn't, if we're doing a complete refinish job where we're silver plating it, you know, that would not be acceptable. This would come apart and you'd have to push these dents out. That's the more appropriate way to do it for refinish work, but they're not, you know, paying $3,000-$4,000 to have it refinished. They're paying a couple $100 for a few $100 for dent work, you know, to make it playable. But there you can see how that really improved. Now, most of that dullness is from the slide grease. It's just fingerprinty. That'll clean up. Even if I just take a piece of polishing cloth to it, that'll already start to brighten. But if I get in there with a rouge wheel on the buffing machine, that'll really, the clarity will really pop. All right, so I'll show you what this area looks like after I buffed it. Let's take a look at what that's like. So here's what it's like. I've got a bunch of these in the shop right now. Eight of them. So you can see your little witness marks. But all in all, that area looks really great. And right now we have a 3-foot tuba. You're not going to pick up on those unless you knew they were there and you're really on top of it. Again, how can we get this better? The only way to do that would be to remove this branch and all these braces. And now you're starting to put really significant time on remounting and resoldering, and that's totally appropriate and not a problem to do. It can certainly be done, whether it's being overhauled or just doing it the conventional way. Certainly possible. But what do you think is going to happen after the first week of drum corps camp? It's probably going to come back. So there is an area of practicality. You take something, how much time do you spend on making that 100% like it was never there? If it's very accessible, it's much easier to do. If it's highly inaccessible, it's much more difficult to do. So the balance between what is affordable and what is like 99% there. Okay, I hope you enjoyed hanging out with Jim Flies 2 in the repair shop. Oh, good news. Really good news. For those that you follow my drum covers or drum and bass covers, been doing more of that because I love playing bass. That's coming together a lot more, and I've got a new digital audio workstation called Reaper. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. Bye.